I do. For Premier Horgan, what do you say to parents who are trying to figure out what the fall looks like in terms of childcare, in terms of their own decision to send kids back to school? Now they've been told that school will be delayed by a few days, although not in every district. So what do you say? And then also trying to balance if they're going to send their kids to before and after school care. So what do you say to those parents who are grappling with tough decisions on schools and also trying to figure out with very limited options what to do around childcare?
Well, thank you for the question, and it is, of course, very topical here as we come to the middle of August and we start looking to September and Labor Day and the beginning of the school year. I remember vividly taking my kids to their first day at Happy Valley Elementary in Langford. They were anxious who was going to be in their classroom, who was their teacher going to be. My spouse Elliot and I were both anxious about their well-being outside of a pandemic. So I fully understand how parents and families are concerned about the circumstances we find ourselves in. But I also know that the Minister of Education and a whole host of educators and other professionals in the education sector with public health officials have been working diligently to ensure that we have a safe and effective restart of our K-12 system, which includes before school and after school care for young ones. And we've had a collaboration between the minister responsible for childcare as well as Ministry of Education officials, trustees and school boards across the province. One size does not fit all. We all understand that, but we also understand that it's fundamental to reestablishing a normalcy within our communities that we have safe places for our kids to be so they can learn and grow and socialize and do all the wonderful things that children do in their elementary school years, and then the exciting things about becoming adults and getting into high school and then moving on to other endeavors within the community. These are fundamental parts of people's lives, and we want to make sure we manage it as carefully as we can for their well-being, but also ensure that we have these options available for people. I know there's going to be those that are concerned. We're working every day diligently to try and ease those concerns and make it as safe as we possibly can. That's our objective, that's our goal, and I think parents understand that, educators understand that, and the kids, of course, they just want to get back to school.
Regarding going back to school and regarding the increased number in cases that we're seeing, is there any thought to pulling back on some of the things that we can do in other aspects of our life to balance out the potential increased cases that we're going to see in schools? And I don't know if that means restricting more on what's happening in bars or things like that so that it will balance out the increase that is potential when kids return to school.
Thanks for the question, and we are trying to find the balance. We have been working for 5 months. Seems like 5,000 months in COVID years. Dr. Henry and I, Minister Dix, and a host of healthcare professionals across the province, as well as other leaders in communities, to try and find that balance of being restrictive enough to get the bend on the curve that we saw earlier, allowing us to go to phase 3 of our restart plan. But, as numbers increase, we have to adapt and amend our behavior. That's why today's announcement of 500 more professionals to help with contact tracing is so critically important. It, first of all, relieves those that have been working tirelessly for the past number of months to protect all British Columbians, but it also allows us to expand our education programs. It allows us to make sure that enforcement is in place. And this goes back to, I think it was Penny's question earlier on. We have been relying on people to use their good judgment and common sense, and that we've had positive results because of that. But enforcement is available to us, and if we need to be firmer on these issues, we will. But for now, we believe that the public gets it. As we've seen an increase in numbers, people have started to modify or moderate their behavior in social settings. Stick to the plan, focus on yourself and those around you. Make sure that when you interact with people you don't know in large numbers, you're putting at risk all of your family and all of the connections you have outside of that large group. These are pretty basic elements. We've been repeating it over and over again. Dr. Henry's been very, very diligent in making sure that people clearly understand what we're talking about. But we do need to get the message out to the audience that's not hearing us. And we're looking at other measures to do that. Taking pressure off the contact tracers will allow us to redeploy those resources to get that objective.
Oh, hi. Thanks for your time. I think this question probably is for Dr. Henry, and it relates to schools. The success of the province, part of it's been attributed to how much buy-in there's been from people here in terms of doing what it takes to flatten the curve. A recent Insights West poll indicates that about 50% of parents are not comfortable with the back-to-school plan and sending their kids back to school full-time. If that doesn't change, would there be any consideration to modifying that plan as we get into school?
Yeah, that is perhaps a question for the Premier. And I will just say that, my job is to provide the health framework. And I think that some of that, what you're talking about, it reflects the concern that we all have. How is this going to work? And wanting to know the details. And those details are coming.
Thanks for the question, and it is more appropriately put to the policymakers. We, of course, rely very heavily on Dr. Henry and her team to give us the public health framework for the decisions we make, but at the end of the day, the decisions rest with me and my government. Minister Fleming has been working tirelessly with all of the stakeholders, which includes parents, and in some cases with young adults at the secondary level, to try and make sure we're meeting the needs in the community as well as relieving those anxieties that the poll you suggested indicate. I absolutely get that there's anxiety in the community. It's not just about K-12. For many people, it's extremely difficult and filling them with anxiety to go to the grocery store to get their basic needs filled on a weekly basis. We are in a global pandemic. We need to be cautious. We need to be aware. We don't want to be fear mongers, but we want people to recognize that there is no immunity at this point in time. There is no vaccine at this point in time. We have to take the measures that are available to us. Physical distancing, wash your hands regularly, don't go into the broader community if you're ill, and make sure that you keep your contacts as limited as you possibly can. Now, that sounds counter to opening up our K-12 system. But we, unlike every other jurisdiction in North America, have the benefit of a month of activity in June that has allowed us to shape what we believe the fall can look like. We have taken a pause to allow educators to get into the schools and prepare for the first 2 days of the school year. But I'm sure that everyone who's listening, everyone who's tuned in right now, anyone who may see these comments down the road will remember either their children or their own interactions in the first couple of days of school. You talked about how the summer went. You couldn't wait to get back outside. You wanted to play. You wanted to engage and socialize. That's what the first couple of days of school is all about. It's not we're going to have a quiz on Tuesday. It's about how do we get ready and prepare for the year ahead, which includes reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also socialization and learning how to interact with each other. This is an extraordinary time. Our children are going to be extraordinary because of this time that we're living in. I'm excited about it. Am I apprehensive? Sure. But I think that we can go into this with the best of intentions to have the best outcomes if we all work together and keep that flexibility that Minister Fleming demonstrated just this week.
And do you have a follow-up, Rob?
Yeah, Premier, it's on the same topic. I'm just wondering, it sounds like a majority of parents favor some kind of hybrid approach like we saw in the spring with not full-time back in the classroom. I think, as you've noted, there's a bit of adjustment because people went from expecting, maybe younger kids in the school full-time, but not everybody. Given that most parents favor sort of online as well as in-classroom, is the plan that's been presented definitely the plan, or is there any option that may get adjusted in the coming months?
Well, we've demonstrated just this week that adjustments will be made as required, and I think that's what parents expect, that's what educators expect, and what we have to focus on is the well-being of everyone in the system, and that's our focus. That's why we take the sound advice we get from Dr. Henry and her team, and we try and implement that with what the reality is in schools right across BC. And as I've said repeatedly, what's needed in Salmon Arm is not the same as what's needed in Saanich or Selmo in the Kootenays. Every school is different, every district is different, and teachers, administrators, trustees, and parents are all going to have to find a way to make it work. And I'm confident that people of goodwill and good intention, knowing the importance of education to our well-being and to our communities, will work as hard as they can to make sure everyone's safe.